Hi and welcome to InSTEM. In today's interview, I'm going to be chatting to Yasmin Ali. Yasmin is a chartered chemical engineer who has forged a successful career within the power generation and energy sectors. She began her career with E.ON and now currently works within the hydrogen sector. If you would like to find out more about what to expect of a career within these industries, then make sure you watch this interview. I will also be speaking to Yasmin about her book on energy, which she's set to release in 2024. Make sure you tune in to find out more. Hope you enjoy watching. Thank you. So thank you very much, Yasmin, for joining me today on InSTEM. It's really exciting to have you, and I'm really looking forward to learning more about your experiences and sharing it with the audience. If you've watched any of our recent interviews, you'll notice that we've sort of picked up this new custom of starting with icebreaker questions. So if it's okay, I'll start you off with an icebreaker question. So my question to you is, if you could be an expert at something, what would it be and why?
I did watch your recent interviews and I saw Mimi's answer to this, which was really good about languages. So I'm going to have to think of something different.
Else, yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good one. What would I be an expert in? There's lots of things. I think the thing that just springs to mind, because it's something I've been interested in recently, is around recycling.
Right.
So I work in the energy sector, but I'm becoming more and more interested in recycling and what we do with materials at the end of their life. So I think it would be great if I was an expert in just knowing what everything is made of and what happens to it at the end of its life at the moment and what we could do about that.
That's a very
interesting. Today's this is today's obsession.
No, it's an interesting subject area, and actually, with these types of questions, they tend to be answers that are unattainable or quite far-fetched. And I think that you've got the foundation, you've got the experiences to go into something like that and become an expert at it. So I think it's a great answer. Excellent. So you're a chartered chemical engineer and you've built a career in power generation and energy. I'm going to start with the first part, which is chemical engineering. What led you to choosing to study chemical engineering of all the disciplines in the world? Yeah,
it was a bit of random chance, really. I originally wanted to, but I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I decided to study medicine because I understand what a doctor is, and that's the job that my parents did. Yeah. But I didn't get into university to do medicine, and probably in hindsight didn't really want to do it. And I applied 2 years in a row, didn't get in, and at that point I thought, oh, maybe the world is trying to tell me something. And I'd had a leaflet in the post from a campaign called Why Not ChemEng, and that was advertising careers in chemical engineering. And I was attracted to it because it listed all of these different industries that you can work in with the degree. And at the stage in my life that I was at, I hated the idea of being restricted to one thing. So I liked this idea that, oh, if I study this thing, then I can go on and do lots of different jobs. And to be honest, I didn't even look at any of the other engineering degrees. I just thought, this looks good, I'll go for that.
That's very interesting, even more so because we have quite similar stories. I also started out wanting to do medicine. I probably didn't go as far as you. I think by year 13, I decided that medicine was no longer for me. But I also, chemical engineering appealed to me because it felt unrestricted. And the opportunity to work in just about every sector was what made it sort of resonate with me. So yeah, that's really cool.
I should have probably realized I did lots of work experience in hospitals, and quite a few times I fainted. And that probably should have been the point where I
quite a strong indication,
took the hint that hospitals make me faint for some reason. But I carried on.
Well, you've built a successful career in chemical engineering, so clearly you made the right choice. In particular, you've built a career in the power generation and energy sector, which is very interesting. I think at first, I'd like to know whether was it an intentional choice from your university studies to go into that area, or did you stumble into it?
Again, a bit of stumbling. So my parents have a neighbor who worked for E.ON, the energy company. And when I was in my, I think, first or second year, he just suggested applying for an internship. And I thought, why not? You go and you do 3 months, see if you like it or not. And that was my introduction to the energy sector. So I think I'd say through that work experience, we did do a module on energy in 3rd or 4th year, and I quite enjoyed that as well. But yeah, not something I set out to do, but it made sense once I'd got into it.
Yeah, experiences like that can be amazing, because that short stint, the exposure you get can just, go a long way in determining your future. So it's great that you had someone that could help you and lead you in that direction. And so tell me a little bit more about your experience of working in, so you started off in power generation with E.ON, and you've progressed since then into, doing some work for the government, and now you work within the hydrogen sort of market. So tell me a little bit about your experiences and how you've made those sort of transitions from a conventional, way of sort of generating power and energy to something a bit more sustainable.
Yeah, so I started with a graduate scheme because that's what I thought you were supposed to do. I now know that you can get other jobs. You don't have to go for a graduate scheme. But yeah, so I did that with E.ON. It was 2 years. I worked in power generation and a few other bits. And my final placement was in oil and gas, and I quite enjoyed that. So I stayed in that sector for about 5 years. And then from there moved to work as a control room manager on a district heating business, which was good and bad. And at that point, I'd been with the company for 7 years, and I decided I wanted to do something different. I was getting more and more concerned about sustainability and climate change. And I thought, I've been working in these little bits of the energy industry, and I don't really understand how it all fits together. So I took the decision to quit my job, didn't have another job to go to. Some people said that was brave. Some people said that was stupid. I don't know.
I'm on the brave team.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I thought about it and got myself sorted out and kind of financially, and knew how long I could be out of work for, and had a few projects that I wanted to work on. So I didn't just like one day get angry and quit. It was very, very calculated. And while I was off, I thought about, what do I want for my next job? What's going to give me that overview of the energy industry and a bit more work in sustainability? And I thought government would be a good choice. That's how I really ended up there. Just from having that thought, started looking into how you get a job in government and the different teams there. And I ended up working with a very cool team that gives out funding for energy innovation projects. And that was really the beginning of getting into hydrogen. So I was involved in one of the first hydrogen innovation programs that the government ran. I did that job for about just under 4 years, and then got approached by the company that I'm working for now to go and work for them as a hydrogen project development manager. And it felt like the right time to move on and try something else.
It sounds like the opportunity to work for the government was quite an interesting and a good one for you to, identify which area of sustainability that you wanted to, I guess, build further experience in. So are you able to share the name of the company you work for, or other government projects that maybe engineers or in similar situations can look out for opportunities within?
Yeah, so I work for RWE, which is a big German utility, but there are, all the big oil companies are doing hydrogen. You've got BP, Shell, Total, whoever, and everybody's getting into it. There's lots of smaller they were startups. They're getting quite big now. People like Storegga, who are based up in Scotland, Progressive Energy, who are quite big in, let me get this right, northwest of the UK. But it's such a growing market at the moment. Being in government was really helpful because I got to see all of the policy behind how the UK is going to build that hydrogen industry and all the development and thinking that went into that. So that's been very useful in my job now. But yeah, I think even I would recommend to engineers to go and work for government as well. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
and I'd imagine a group of people.
Yeah, I'd imagine the exposure to the different types of innovation as well is a really good way to, a good introduction into, what's available.
Yeah, and I mean, there are so many other interesting areas. There was another team that was doing innovation programs for electricity side of things and flexibility for the grid, and I find that stuff really fascinating as well, but I can't do everything, and I just happen to have gone down this route. But I think I would have been equally happy doing something else energy industry related.
Besides your day-to-day chemical engineering work, you're also a very visible figure in STEM, in engineering. You promote STEM to the next generation. You do a lot of outreach work. It's really impressive. I don't know where you find the time to do all these things. Unfortunately, time doesn't permit me to go through for us to discuss everything that you do outside of your day-to-day work, but there are two that I picked up that I found super interesting. So the first is you write a column for the TC magazine. So for anyone who doesn't know what TC stands for, that's the Chemical Engineer, which is the magazine for the Institution of Chemical Engineers. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I realized that I really enjoy writing quite a few years ago, and I decided to try and build that up. And after a chat with someone who does a lot of science communication, he said, why don't you come up with an idea for a regular column and pitch that to your institution magazine? So I came up with a couple of ideas and spoke to Adam, who's the editor of that magazine, and he liked this one. So I basically find chemical engineers who I think are interesting, who have gone into slightly non-traditional chemical engineering jobs, and I bring them up, chat to them, and then write about their career. I think I wanted to show how diverse chemical engineering is, and I think a lot of people who think about chemical engineering maybe think that you're going to end up working in a refinery or in, oil and gas or something like that, but there's so much more out there, and I've been surprised by some of the people that I've found and where they've ended up. There's a guy he was an archivist. He just loved history. He was an archivist for the Institution of Engineering and Technology, and he loved it. There are a couple of people who are writers who I've spoken to, like science journalists. The guy I spoke to most recently is a patent lawyer in the US.
Read that one.
Yeah, it's just like, it's amazing to see where all these people have ended up.
Yeah, as I'm sure you weren't surprised that I picked that interest out of your several interests, because it's something that we share in common. I also, like you, the point of STEM is to showcase the diverse, careers within engineering and STEM. So it's interesting to hear some of the interesting careers that you've come across. Archivist is something I'm going to be reading a little bit more about after this interview, because that's definitely something I haven't come across before. Writing a book, and it's about energy, and it sounds very exciting. So tell me a little bit more about.
Yeah, so that's kind of, an extension of this love for writing that I have, and I wanted a way of combining writing with my career and also trying to show people beyond our industry what the energy sector is all about. So again, I thought I like writing a book seems like the next logical step. It's taken a really long time to get to where I am now. So I've got like a publisher, and the book will come out in 2024. It's called Power Up, and it's just a bit of a backstage of energy. So I'm looking at where we get our energy resources from, how we move them around, which I think is something that's not really talked about very much. So all the pipelines and all the electricity cables and all the liquefied natural gas ships that crisscross the globe all of the time. And then the final section of the book is about how we use energy. So how we heat our buildings, how we manufacture fertilizer, concrete, and all of that stuff, and also transport, to how we ourselves and our stuff gets moved around. So yeah, it's been really fun writing it. And again, it's been an opportunity to go and visit places and contact people who have interesting jobs and interview them. So I've really enjoyed it.
That sounds super interesting. I'm really excited to get my hands on the book and and learn more about, Power Up. No, that's so. Where would we be able to find the book in 2024? What's the best way to access it, or to get any updates on the book for that matter?
It will be in bookshops, I imagine, or online, and updates on the book. Probably I will be posting things about it on social media. So I'm at Engineer Yasmin.
Awesome. I'll make sure that this interview goes out with your social media links so people can follow you on the journey and support you when the book comes out as well. So thank you for sharing about that. Now to the final question, which is what would you say to your younger self? And this is your younger self just, starting out in industry. What advice would you give?
I think I worried too much about making the right decisions, and I realize now that it kind of doesn't matter, or I wasn't focusing on the right things. So you think I have to pick my next graduate scheme placement really carefully, and it has to be a really interesting thing and all that. But I think in the end, lots of engineering sectors and jobs are amazing, and it's more about the people that you work with and your own kind of values and how that fits in with what you're doing. So earlier this week I was chatting to a lady who works in the cement sector, and she loves it, and you wouldn't think that could be, on the surface that sounds quite dull, but it's not. So I think I would tell myself to think about what my priorities are and not worry so much. It's all going to be fine.
I think that's great advice. I think everyone can, reflect on that. I think we all have the tendency to worry and things, perfect from the onset, but actually.
Yeah. I mean, I still do it now, but I'm less so. I'm getting a bit more relaxed as I get older.
That's great advice. Thank you very much, Yasmin, for coming to InSTEM. It's been brilliant speaking to you. Your career experiences and just the amazing number of things that you are involved with is absolutely, inspirational, and it's really impressive. So yeah, I look forward to finding more about what you're up to, and please come back to InSTEM to more about your book, especially.
That'd be great. Thank you for having me. It's been really fun to chat.
Awesome. Thank you.